On January the 5th, 2026, a white airship-like thing hovered at an altitude of 2 km over a city in China. However, this was not an airship. It was the Sawas S3000 Airborne wind energy system, developed by a Chinese renewable energy company. Measuring 6 meters in length and 40 meters in height, the system has a maximum rated capacity of 3 megawatts and is ready in small-scale production. This marked its first deployment in urban airspace. During the test, it generated a total of 385 kilowatt-hour of electricity and completed grid integration. You might wonder, if we already have ground-based wind turbines, why put power generators in the sky? Well, first, conventional onshore wind farms are highly site-specific. They are typically built in remote deserts or coastal wetlands, so transporting a single turbine blade alone often requires navigating mountains and rough terrain. The costs are significant. Second, a single turbine during working can generate noise levels up to 100 decibels.
It's no surprise to me to learn from Global that the Minister has failed to investigate noise and health complaints related to industrial wind turbines. Liberal ministers have been ignoring homeowners in Dufferin-Caledon for over 10 years.
Third, in flat lands, wind speeds are highly variable, so turbines only have between 2,000 and 3,000 hours per year to operate at steady capacity. In contrast, winds above 500 meters altitude are far more reliable. Unobstructed by buildings or mountains, they offer not only consistent speeds, but also up to 100 times higher wind density than at ground level. At these altitudes, wind speeds typically range from 15 to 25 meters per second and blow steadily for over 6,000 hours annually. As a result, an airborne wind energy system of the same size can generate 5 times more electricity than a conventional ground-based turbine. Moreover, birds typically fly below 300 meters. An airborne wind energy system typically operates about 500 meters above ground, so it's well out of their flight path, posing no threat to avian life. And noise generated at 500 meters in the sky dissipates quickly as it travels down, and for an observer on the ground level, it's as faintly as rustling leaves. If the turbine was put at even higher altitudes, the system would seem to be operating in complete silence for people on the ground. In recent years, China has led the world in contest for renewable energy deployment. As of 2025, the share of electricity generated by source in China is as follows. Thermal power accounts for about 60%, hydropower 14%, wind 10%, solar approximately 8.4%, and nuclear power 4.5%. When measured by installed capacity, China now represents about 46% of global wind power, roughly half of solar, and 30% of global hydropower capacity. A more insightful indicator is power consumption per capita. Higher levels typically reflect a more intelligent, electrified, and convenient lifestyle. In 2024, the United States had a per capita electricity consumption of approximately 13,000 kilowatt-hour, Japan at about 8,000, France and Germany around 7,000 and 6,000 respectively, and the United Kingdom roughly 4,600. China stood at 7,100 kilowatt-hour, surpassing the UK, Germany, and even matching France. The relatively high per capita electricity consumption in both China and Japan is also due to the fact that they are more like production nations, where energy-intensive heavy industry accounts for a significant share of power use. For instance, in 2024, China's secondary sector of the economy, primarily manufacturing, consumed over 65% of the nation's power generated, while household consumption remained substantially lower than the USA. In contrast, the United Kingdom has undergone decades of deindustrialization, resulting in a steady decline in the share of power consumed by its industrial and manufacturing sectors. In November 2025, Microsoft CEO Nadella said this during the BG2 episode. He said that the company had stockpiles of NVIDIA GPUs sitting idle in a warehouse because it's short of the power needed to run them. This candid remark reveals a critical truth of the AI era. The most valuable factor of production is no longer just silicon. It's electricity, or more broadly speaking, energy. While today it seems that GPUs and semiconductors are holding things back, they are the bottlenecks. But in the future, the decisive strategic asset that will constrain or enable future economic and technological advancement is power. And power is at the heart of what separates civilizations at different stages of development. According to Soviet astrophysicist Nikolai Kardashev, who proposed in 1964 the Kardashev scale, civilizations fall into 3 tiers based on their energy utilization capacities. Type 1 is planetary civilization, which is capable of harnessing all available energy on its home planet. Type 2 is stellar civilization, one that can capture and utilize the total energy output of its whole star, for example the Sun, potentially through megastructures like a Dyson sphere. And Type 3 is galactic civilization, the highest tier, representing a civilization able to command the energy of an entire galaxy, tapping into the power of hundreds of billions of stars, black holes, and other cosmic phenomena. We are certainly not even close to Type 1. Our current energy consumption places us at approximately 0.73 on the Kardashev scale, but the path forward is clear. The ferocious, almost monstrous appetite for power from AI is now acting as a powerful catalyst, pushing us toward Type 1 civilization. In this transition, the nation that develops the most efficient means of producing and utilizing energy will gain decisive strategic advantage, and ultimately emerge as the dominant power of the AI era. If you agree with this, then this chart might unnerve you a little bit. Over the past decade, China's power generation has nearly doubled, adding more than 3,000 terawatt-hours. And in stark contrast, US power generation capacity has remained virtually flat, while the European Union have actually seen a decline in total output. This divergence isn't just about numbers. It signals a fundamental shift in which economies are building their energy foundations for the next generation technological era. You might argue that China's soaring power output is a reflection of its role as the world's factory, because everything is made in China. The power China generates is not only serving its own people, but also consumers all over the world. It might be true to some extent, but unlike commodities which can be shipped around the globe, power infrastructure is inherently tied to land. It is almost always generated and consumed locally. While there are limited examples of cross-border electricity trade via high-voltage transmission, the vast majority of power remains confined to the place where it is produced. And therefore, if China continues on this steep growth trajectory, while the US and Europe show little to no expansion in power generation capacity, the implications are clear. The AI era will belong to the nation that can reliably power it, and right now the nation seems to be China. According to a research from Epoch AI, a non-profit AI research organization, each user query to ChatGPT consumes an average of 0.3 watt-hours of energy for processing and generating a response. To put that in perspective, 0.3 watt-hours is roughly the amount of energy needed to power a 5-watt LED light bulb for about 4 minutes. However, as AI models grow more sophisticated, especially for advanced models that think deeply for several seconds or even minutes, the energy cost per query could rise dramatically. Some studies even suggest that the more advanced models like GPT-5 might consume between 18 and 40 watt-hour of electricity per query, representing a 60 to 130-fold increase over current levels. This exponential growth in computational energy demand underscores why access to abundant, reliable, and clean energy will be a decisive factor in the race to lead AI era. If our society increasingly delegates more work to AI, the resulting surge in energy demand will be substantial. Institutions like NEMA have projected US electricity consumption demand growth over the next 25 years, and even the most conservative predictions suggest that the total US electricity demand will rise by 30% by 2050. The United States is not alone. Japan and Europe face similar pressure on power demand, and China very likely will see the most addition in power generation capacity. During the US-Saudi Investment Forum in November 2025, Elon Musk said the following.
Now between now and then there's actually a lot of work to get to that point. And I always recommend people read Ian Banks' culture books to get a sense for what a probable positive AI future is like. And interestingly, in those books, money is doesn't exist. It's kind of interesting. And my guess is, if you go out long enough, assuming there's a continued improvement in AI and robotics, which this seems likely, the money will stop being relevant at some point in the future. Now, there will still be...
Why currency no longer matters? Remember Kardashev's definition of civilizations of different types? For more advanced civilizations, energy is the only variable that matters. And if we study the power generation capacity changes over the last decade, which nation is moving faster toward energy abundance required for a Type 1 civilization? This is not a question of ideology or values, whether you favor the Chinese system or Western values. The trend here is pretty obvious.